Hi, Shalom.
Shalom's here.
Yeah,
Okay.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Here, let me see my item.
Yeah.
Hey, Shalom. There you are. Good job. What? Good. Good to see you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna start today. Daf Kaf Lamed Aleph by Rava. It's 131. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. Especially by learning Hashem Zasi Migdash. We're learning the Nishmas. Zav Goldavas Bar Binyamin and Zav Soon. Also, for Shlemus and Rabbi Ben Sarah and Kinarin Getzel. Okay. Umar says like this by Rava. Rava has a question. The Bari Heich. What would be the halacha if a healthy person decides to allocate his inheritance, to bequeath his inheritance, not the way the Torah prescribes, but to one of his inheritors? And we learned before that it was the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka that allowed a person to do this. It allows a person to say that one of my sons is going to inherit all the inheritance because that son was eligible. He's able to do that, and he learns it from a pasuk. Pasuk says, "B'yayim hanchilai," on the day that he bequeaths. What does it mean he bequeaths? He doesn't bequeath. The Torah says where it goes. It says no. He has the right to choose. Okay. So maybe we should say that this is only b'yayim hanchilai, only on the day that he bequeaths. That means only when he's on his deathbed. Maybe it doesn't apply when he's healthy. That he can't do this when he's healthy, right? Based on the pasuk, should only say that it's b'yayim hanchilai. So Kikam Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. When did Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka say that a person can allocate all his inheritance to one son? That's b'shchiv mira. That's when someone that's on his sick bed. Shchiv means he's laying, and mira means ill. Debar urasihu, because he's eligible to bequeath. Urasi means Yerusha. Aval babari, but if he's healthy, then he can't do this. Does this mean?
When you say the bequeathing is not necessarily giving a gift, this is inheritance.
Inheritance specifically, yeah. If it's a gift, then everything changes. If it's a gift, everything's allowed. Right. Now, how would he do this? If he's a shchiv mira, then he can just verbalize it, and that's good enough, right? Shchiv mira doesn't need any documents, kinyanim, shchiv mira, whatever he says is good enough. But if he's healthy, is the Gemara suggesting that he should be able to do the same sort of bequeath with just verbal? I'm not sure, like what it is. There comments in the art scroll of how it should work?
Will everything change? Like it gets better because we learned about that before.
Yeah. So we had a difference in the shchiv mira. If you gave everything, or if you gave almost everything. If you gave everything, then it switches when he gets better. If you gave almost everything, then that was considered a gift. But how would he be giving this? They're not commenting on this.
There's a comment by.
Does he mention if there's a kinyan or if it's just a? Okay, whatever the case is, it doesn't matter in the Gemara's question. I'm just asking the technical, how did this play out? Okay, Amar le Rav Mesharshia Rav Mesharshia says to Rav, he has an answer. Is it going to apply to a healthy person as well? Do we have that ability? Does Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka's logic?
The Migash holds that in Boris game it not suffice after acquisition.
Very good. Very good. Okay. In the notes in the Quran, he brings the Rimagash. Familiar with the Rimagash? It's the teacher of the Rambam. The teacher of the Rambam's father as well, Maimon. He says that you would need a kinyan. Yeah, the Rimagash is very important in Basra.
You would need a kinyan for the bari.
For the bari.
But not for the shchiv mira. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Amalei Reb Mishashi l'Rava. Reb Mishashi says to Reb Tashma, come and listen. Amalei Rebbe Nassan l'Rebbe. Rabbi Nassan said to Rebbe. Rabbi Nassan is older than Rebbe. Reb Nassan was a friend of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the friend of Rebbe's father. That argument that at the end of Masechtas Horayos, where Reb Nassan and Reb Meir ended up outside the Beis Medrash, they were like suspended from the yeshiva. That was in the conflict with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, with Rebbe's father. Anyway, Reb Nassan says to Rebbe, Shanisim Mishnaschem, you in Eretz Yisrael, Reb Nassan is called Reb Nassan Habavli, the Babylonian. He's telling Rebbe, you learned in Eretz Yisrael, in your Mishnah, and different in Babel, Rabbi Yechon Membreka, like Rabbi Yechon Membreka. Now, I don't know if he means because Rebbe edited the Mishnayos, or if he means that that was just the traditional Mishnah in Eretz Yisrael. Why? What did you say exactly in the Mishnayos? The Tanan, it says like this. In other words, there's a machlekes Rabbi Yechon Membreka and the Rabbanon if a person is allowed to allocate his to bequeath his property, his assets to one of the inheritors over the other ones. And Rav Nassan's telling Rebbe that you ruled like Rabbi Yechon Membreka that says that you're allowed to. In your Mishnayos, it says that. Now, where does it say that clearly? It says, Ditan, you have a Mishnah that says like this. Like Kasav La bin, he doesn't write for her the following in the Ksuba. This is a Mishnah in Ksubas. He doesn't write, Binyan dichrin di Yahavan lach minai, inan yartin kesef ksubasaich, yoser al cholkeyan de machoin. If he doesn't write that, then the halacha is chayev. It's considered like it's written. I'll tell you what it means. Shetanai bezdinu, because that's a stipulation of the bezdin, and even if he doesn't write it, it still takes effect. Now, what is it that he didn't write? If he doesn't say that the sons that you have, that the sons that I have from you, means her sons, will inherit your ksuba over the rest of the inheritance. In other words, the rest of the inheritance will divide equally between the whole family, between all the children. But we're going to leave out of that the mother's ksuba. And then the mother's ksuba you're going to inherit independently from the rest of the inheritance. If he doesn't write that, then that goes automatically to them anyway, even without writing it. Now, what's supposed to happen is that what it means over here, the ksuba, it doesn't actually mean the regular ksuba. I think it means the property that she brings in to the marriage, which would be...
usually she wouldn't have property,
though. No, but if she got... We're talking about here that her father, when she got married, the father gave a large dowry. And that dowry, he doesn't want it to go to other people. Let's say his husband has several wives. He doesn't want it to go to not his grandchildren. He wants it to go to his grandchildren. So what happened? The problem is that she passed away first. So the husband inherits before the sons. The husband inherits. So it turns out that the property that came from the father-in-law now ends up by the husband. Now it's going to get spread out amongst the other sons. So he writes in the ksuba, this probably the father-in-law makes sure that this is written in the ksuba, that if my daughter passes away first and you're going to inherit, then it should go to, it should go back to those sons. Now, how do you do that? Because if he actually inherits it, how does he let it go to how does he stipulate an inheritance to go to one party without being divided equally? Unless you accept the view of Rabbi Yechon Membreka. Rabbi Yechon Membreka holds that you're allowed to do that.
They can't just stipulate skipping the husband, like just go to the son.
No, because when she dies, the husband inherits.
Yeah, but they can't, like, due to the law, you can't just give it to her kids instead of the husband.
The rule is that the husband inherits.
When the husband passes away,
when the husband passes away and it's going to go to the children, we say that this part goes specifically to those sons. And Breaker would allow that.
But it wouldn't extend where they could skip the father and go towards the kids.
We had a discussion before if Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka allows on the page before allows if we had two opinions. Does Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka hold that it can go even in that way or not? I don't know what the halacha was. We said that we paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka.
But I don't think it mentioned it.
How wide it would be, I'm not sure. I was asking if according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, you could do this, that not the husband inherits, but just the kids will inherit. Now, and basically the question is asking yesterday's Gemara, do we let Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka's view extend even to the wider family, larger family? That was a discussion, yeah.
Well, from what I read, the halakha doesn't end up like Yochanan ben Baroka anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Gemara doesn't dispute him. Eventually, it accepts his opinion, or it doesn't knock it down, but I don't think that's the halakha.
Even though we said so many times halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, but so many people saying that halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka.
Well,
halacha doesn't come out of
is
it.
Yitzi there?
No.
I mean, I think this is why people go to so much trouble to arrange their inheritance so that some part of it is given according to the guidelines, the halakha guidelines, and then they give the rest in gifts. If they could do it like Ben Baroka, we wouldn't bother to do that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. By the way, I noticed in Taisvis when it says halacha Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, it says near the dafka bein abanim, only specifically for the son amongst the sons, but not to the wider family. That's what Taisvis says. Yeah, Ashkenazim usually go like Taisvis. That's a very general statement. There's a lot of details there. Okay.
Well, the logic here is not very sound either, what the Gemara is suggesting, because there is a specific instance in which we want to protect the father giving a dowry, to extend that to the whole general idea of inheritance.
Right. Well, listen to what happens over here. This was Reb Nassan telling Rebbe that you paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. V'amalei Rebbe, and Rebbe says, Yizbun Tanan. In the Ksuba, it says, Inun Yartun. They will inherit the money. And Rebbe says to Reb Nassan, it doesn't say Yartun. Yartun, the Tuf and Shin are interchangeable, Hebrew and Aramaic. So that would be Yarshun, right? Like Yairish, inherit. It doesn't say Yartun. It says Yaspun, which means they'll be taken as a gift, received as a gift. There goes the whole thing. I don't need Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka to allocate a gift to anyone. Gifts you can give to whoever you want. So it's only if it was an inheritance that it had to follow Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. So Rebbe just like negates what Reb Nassan was saying by telling him that the wording is slightly different. It wasn't an inheritance; it's a gift. Okay. Lama Rebbe, however, Rebbe said that Yalda Saisabi, I had immaturity. Yasti Pani Benasana Bavli. I was chutzpahdik. I was brazen in front of Nasana Bavli, and I told him that even though it wasn't accurate. And because Ella the Kaimalan Binyan Dichrin Leitafrim Shabdi, the reason why it's not accurate, that it can't be that it was a gift, is because there's a rule that if the father had sold property and the sons want to get the male children, offspring of that woman, want to get the mother's ksuba, the dowry that came from their grandfather, they want to collect it. And the father had sold property, they can't take it, they can't repossess sold property for that. And the reason is because when you're inheriting something, if property was sold, you can't go to the people that purchased it and say that used to be my father's, and and I want it. The father sold it.
The mother have to agree to the sale because the husband could only like eat.
Yeah, but the mother died. Father was the one that's inheriting from the mother. Now it's supposed to go, whatever's remaining of it is supposed to go to the right, but specifically these sons. So if it's a matana, if it's a gift, then who was it a gift to? It was a gift to those sons. So this gifts to the sons that it was gifted to the sons before the father sold it. A gift you can give earlier, right? A gift you can give earlier. An inheritance only takes place when the person dies. Inheritance has to actually happen. You can't give it early. So if it would be a gift, then we would have a question: why can't the sons go and take it away to repossess it from the purchaser? But we don't say that. We say that the sons can't. And that's because it's an inheritance. Okay. So the Gemara now says, obviously from this, we see that it's yartan. And if that's the case, this would be okay. 1 second. Now let's conclude Rav Misharshia's comment. Man shamatle dislei haisvara. Who's the one that holds that you can allocate the inheritance to one party over the others? That's Rabbi Yechon Mitzugazant. That's Rabbi Yechon Membreka. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yechon Membreka. Shema Menafil Bebari. And we see that this applies even to a healthy person because this is being written in the ksuba, and you don't write a ksuba on the deathbed usually, right? So that's his proof. So we seems to have our answer here that Rabbi Yechon Membreka would say this even by a bari. Okay. Of Papala Abaya. We're jumping now one generation down. Rav Papa is a student of Abaya. This was a question of Rava, and Rav Papa says to Abaya. Now, there's different opinions how to learn this. The Rashbam says that we're finished with Rava's question. We already have our answer. That it applies even to a bari. Even a healthy person can allocate the inheritance according to Rabbi Yechon and break it to one of the inheritors over the others.
A will while he's healthy.
Right.
It's just not. It would just be retroactive when he passes away. It goes into effect.
Right. Not retroactive, no? but whenever it happens, whenever it takes effect. So Rav Papa says to Abaya, according to Rashbam, we're just discussing the conversation between Rebbe and Rav Nassan now. We're not reanalyzing the answer to Rava's question. That's how he learns this. Rav Papa says to Abaya, Bein laman damar yispun, bein laman damar yartan, he'ina demakna davar shlei b'lo'elam. There's a problem here. A person can't give something that doesn't exist. Now, that's not so simple. There's a machlaikas. Rav Meir holds yes. It says, "Rafil Rav Meir damar ada makna davar shlei b'lo'elam, hani mili lid davar sheyeshna b'olam, aval davar sheina b'olam lai." If it's a gift, or even if it's an yarton, let's take it like this. Here we're saying not that the property doesn't exist, but the recipient doesn't exist. How do you give a gift to a recipient that wasn't born yet? When would this gift have been given? If it's in the ksuba, he tells her that your sons that will be born to you are receiving this gift. What do you mean? They don't exist yet. You can't give something to someone that doesn't exist. Now, why does this apply also mandamar yartan, inheritance? An inheritance could be, well, inheritance would only take place at the time when after they're born. The recipients, right. This is a new concept. But you can't give a gift to someone that wasn't born yet. So if that's the case, so how does this work? So Ella, you have to say that the way this works, that how do they receive this? It must be Ella Tanai Bezdin Shani. It must be that because this is a stipulation of the Bezdin of the court. So this works differently than other cases. So if that's the case, then Hachanami, Tanai Bezdin Shani. Then we could say that this is a Tanai Bezdin, and even though it could be a Lashon Yerusha,
they can't make a soup on that because the wife is married.
That's right. She has no children. Talking about now that she did have children, and the children now are claiming it. They're claiming their mother's money that the father inherited. They want that money. Well, the mother died. She had money. Her husband inherited. Now it goes to the son after when the father dies.
Oh.
When the father dies, it's going to these sons over the other sons. Yeah, it's like we're tracking that money. Put a tracker on it. So it must be that a Tanai Bezdin works differently. And even though the Rabbanon would say normally, the Rabbanon that argue on Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka that say that you can't allocate this an inheritance to one party over the others, but nevertheless by a Tanai Bezdin it's different. The whole thing doesn't fit with regular rules, because how could this be given to a recipient that doesn't exist? Now, it only doesn't exist if it's a gift, but if it's an inheritance, then it should exist, right?
The person would have to be born in order to inherit.
Person would have to be born, but he is born. Are you saying that how do they write a will? How do you write the will? Well, the inheritance only takes place later. That's the idea, that if it's an inheritance. Let me see how they comment on this. One second, you're ahead. 17. In our case, the properties being transferred are in the world. That considers the recipients of the transfer. Okay. Oh. Yeah, they don't really explain this. With regard to the matter of a disproportionate request to an heir, we can say that a stipulation made by the court is different, and thus it is effective, even according to the sages who maintain that normally such a bequest is not valid. Hence, why did Rebbe have to say the Mishnah reads they will take, even if it reads they will inherit? It conforms to the view of the sages. Why did Rebbe have to tell, about the way they're explaining it, why did Rebbe have to tell Reb Nassim that no, I'm not following Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. I'm following the sages. And how did he do that? He said that the wording of the Mishnah was different. It wasn't inherit, it was a gift, right? That's how Rebbe got out of that. He says, why did he have to say that? He could have said that he's following the opinion of the Rabbanon because it's a Tanai Bezdin. And that itself would have saved him. Okay, so the Gemara now answers that. Well, let's see, it's not the Amar Lei, this is Abaya responding to Rav Papa. Amar Lei, Mishum de Kamapik la Balashin Yartan. The problem is, the reason why Rebbe didn't say that really we're following the Rabbanon and it's a Tanai Bezdin is because the expression here was that it was a Yerusha. You could have said the same thing and said that it was a gift. The fact that you said that it's a Yerusha means that we have leanings towards Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka that allows a Yerusha, allows an inheritance to be allocated to one member over the others. Okay. And then Hadar Amar Abaya then said, Lav Milsi Damri. It's not necessarily so, what I said. In other words, the answer that he just gave, as Rebbe could have gotten out of this anyway. How is that? He says because the Tanan, it says in the Mishnah. Now, this Mishnah is going to quote a second stipulation that's in that's put into the Ksuba. It says like this: Binan nukvan. Binan doesn't have to mean sons. Binan can mean children. So Binan nukvan means female children. It means the girls. I skipped 2 words. I skipped 3 words. Like Kasavla, if he forgot to write in the Ksuba the following: Binan nukvan de haven lechiminoi. Your female children that you have for me, you have in Yasvan bebesi. They will sit in my house. Yasvan is Yashav, right? V'yitzanan minachasai, and they will be sustained by my property. The tilkachan legovran until they get married. If he forgot to write that in the ksuba, so what's the halacha? Chayev. He has to keep that anyway. And as the girls, the children that they have, the girls are going to be sustained by the estate. True Tanai Besdin, because that's a Tanai Besdin. Okay, now he comes in like this. Remember that we learned in the Mishnah that if you have 2 statements, one was a matana and one was a Yerusha, that once you have the matana there, it overtakes the statement of Yerusha and it automatically becomes a matana. So since in the Ksuba we already have the statement of a matana, so he doesn't need to say that the other one is a matana, or the other one becomes a matana, a gift, automatically. That's what we learned before, that if one statement of matana, it overtakes the Yerusha. So it doesn't have to be that it's the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika. It could even be the opinion of the Rabbanan. And because they have 2 statements here, one of them is clearly a gift, right? One of them is clearly, it's even said, it's anan minachasa. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't say they'll inherit. It means that it's given to them as a gift. So then, if that's the case, so then it doesn't have to follow Rabbi Yochanan ben Bereika. The whole thing could be the Rabbanan. Even when it says Yarton, which means Yerusha, but because the first part of the statement said Matana, so that takes over. Now this would only be, this is interesting, because this would only be according to that opinion that holds that this one, Shnei Adam, what was the expression? Shnei B'nei Adam, Shnei Sadis. We had like 2 people, 2 properties. Wasn't that yesterday?
Yesterday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Sada Achas Shnei B'nei Adam. This is Shtei Sada Shnei B'nei Adam. Not everyone held of that. So it's interesting that the Gemara just says this, like as if this is obvious. It was only Rav Sheshis that held of that. It's interesting. Oh, Ukimna, that's the Rashbami answers this. The Rashbami answers this by saying that we paskin like that opinion, like Rav Sheshis. That's how he resolves it. He says we paskin like that opinion that holds Shnei B'Sadish, Shnei B'nei Adam. It still works, and that's why Rebbe's saying that over here. I'm not Rebbe. Abaye is saying that Rebbe could have gotten out of this another way. By just saying that it's Shnei Sadish, Shnei B'nei Adam, and it's, even according to the Rabbanan, it's considered a gift, and that's how you can allocate it to one person over the other. Amalei Rav Nechumi says, Vista Amar Rav Chananya bar Minyumi la Abaya. So either Rav Nechumi or Rav Chananya bar Minyumi says to Abaya. Maybe they mixed it up because it sounds the same. Some say that it was Rav Chananya bar Minyumi said to Abaya. Abaya the name Abaya could mean Nechama. That's a one opinion. Aruch says that Abaya's name was Nachmeni, right? And Rabba didn't want to call him Nachmeni because he grew up in Rabba's house. But so why do you call him Abaya? So Abaya could mean like my father, which means like my father's name. But also could be a translation of the word Nachmeni. Right? That's what the Aruch says, that Abaya in Aramaic or Persian or whatever meant Nachmeni, which would mean that the month Menachem of is like a Yitzchak Isaac, like we use the same, what did I say, a Dove Bear, right? Dove Bear or Tzvi Hirsch. Anyway, so Rav Nechumi says to Abaya, Rav Chananya bar Menyumi says to Abaya, you could only say this if that statement in the Ksuba was instituted by the same Bezdin. And then we would have that statement in the Ksuba being a gift, even though it says Yerusha. Why? Because that statement was considered one statement. And I have to get the term matana to be applied to the following statement, which was Yerusha. But I would have to say that at the same time, maybe Dibar or something like that. But it would have to be instituted by the same Bezdin. But who says that it was instituted by the same Bezdin? Dilma betray Beidin Eskin. Maybe those are two totally different sentences, and they were instituted separately. It says, no, you can't say that. Don't let that enter your mind. Tani Reisha, because we learned in the Reisha, means back in Ksubas, in that Mishnah where we're talking about this, says, Midrash Darash Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Lefnei Chachamim B'Kerem B'Yavne. This teaching was taught by Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah in front of the sages in Kerem B'Yavne. See, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah took over the yeshiva temporarily while Rabbi Gamliel was suspended and a short time, right? And then so this Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah taught this. Usually they say Bay Bayayim. Remember Bay Bayayim meant on that day that Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah took over. There's a lot of Mishnayos that say all the answers were resolved. So what did he teach? He said, was that what that was? Was resolved. It says Habanim, that the sons Yarshu, they're going to inherit. V'Habanais Yazunu, and the daughters, they'll be sustained. That's the institution that we were just mentioned, that the daughters get the sustenance. Now we say like this: Ma Habanim Menim Yarshim Alachem Isaviyim, just like the daughters. Just like the sons. When do they get the inheritance? Only after the father dies. Also, the daughters only get sustained after the father dies. Okay, so it's we know that this is an inheritance, just like what the sons get. Now, no, this is. I'm sorry, the daughters aren't inheriting. The daughters are getting they're getting their sustenance. Now, the fact that a father needs to feed his children, that's not a ksuba issue. That's something that the Bezdin comes in and imposes on them, and it's not even I forget what age, until age 6 or something. It doesn't. The original halacha. Is there any notes on that? But father feeding his child.
Yeah, after age 6.
After age 6, you don't have to. That's it. Get a job.
Wow, that's cool.
Isn't that just boys?
I'm not sure. What does it say over there?
Go Shalom.
Yeah. Does it say anything?
In practice, a father is coerced by the court to sustain his children in terms of marriage contract.
Yeah.
Not obligated.
Yeah, they comment over here that the Bezdin would coerce the father to do that, but it's not coming from the marriage contract. Yeah.
Doesn't the father have to take care of the girls and the dowry for the girls? The institution, they receive 10%, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's when there's money. That's when it's, yeah. Let me see.
I mean, we learned previously that the girls get first and the boys, if they have to go beg.
that's when there's not enough money.
Right. The girls have priority.
One second. You're running ahead of me. The father is not, technically speaking, legally obligated to support his children over the age of 6 during his lifetime. However, it is a moral duty for him to do so. If he refuses, various coercive measures are implemented by the court. In the case of a wealthy person, the court forcibly takes money from him as charity and distributes it to his children. Hey, maybe you could use Meiser. If he is not wealthy, the court disgraces him in public and announces that he is worse than the wild beasts who do not have pity on their offspring. Shulchan Aruch Even Ezer 71. But once a person dies, his daughters are legally entitled to collect support from his estate. It sounds like it's even the daughters. That's what it sounds like from this note. See that? Note 5? Interesting. Okay, so we're assuming now that we're doing a comparison here, that when the sons are going to inherit the estate, that institution was instituted at the same time as the daughters getting their sustenance. Now, if they were both instituted in the same time, that's how we can learn one from the other, because they were both instituted together. When you say one thing, when you say two things in the same sentence, you probably meant that there's some comparison. But if they were instituted at separate times, separate courts, separate bezdin, right, separate times in our history, how could they have learned one institution from another institution? Maybe it's totally different. Maybe the daughters get it while they're alive, and the sons inherit after the death. How do you know? Who's comparing these two things? It must be that they were both instituted by the same court. Both instituted by the same court. Then Rebbe could have gotten out of this by saying that it's one of them is a matana, then the other one is also considered a matana. My answer is Mimai. How do you know that it's like this? Maybe we could say, really, I could say to you, betray Beidin Askan. You're really instituted by two courts. Beidina Basra Tikkun Beidina Kama. The second court instituted it in a similar way to the first court. So we shouldn't have questions that one takana is different than the other one. So they instituted it in a similar style to the first one. But it doesn't mean that when it says by one is a matana, doesn't mean that in the same sentence the other one is in the same sentence, and that's also matana. And I would explain why Rebbe had to say that the term was different. It wasn't yartan, it was yaspan in order to get out of it. All right. Okay. Amar Rav Yudah Amar Shmuel. Yudah says the name of Shmuel. The following Gemara has different ways of learning it, and I don't know what the translations are saying. So you'll.
Sure. Yeah.
I bet they're different even in the monks. We have two translations here: the Art Scroll and the Koran. Let's see what happens. Rav Yudah says the name of Shmuel. Rav Yudah is a student of Shmuel. He's a student of Rav. He's also a student of Shmuel. He says, "Hakaisav kol nechasav leishtay." Someone writes all his property over to his wife as the inheritance. He didn't really mean to make her the sole inheritor. What he wanted to do is he wants his sons to give her respect, and she's considered a apotropos, and they're obviously going to have to treat her well because she's going to be distributing the funds to them. So she's holding on to the bank account, right? Never insult the person that pays your check, signs your check. So they're going to have to treat her very well because they're going to be getting the funds from her. She's apotropos. Now, what this means is two things. One is that she's apotropos. The other point, but the main thing is that she's not really inheriting, even though it says she is. It looks good, but it's not really that good. It's just she's just distributing the money. Okay, now the Gemara says pshita. The following statement is going to be obvious, but we're going to have whenever it says something's obvious, it means there's a question to follow. If he gives all of the inheritance, he writes it all to the oldest son. What he means is that he wants the other children to respect the oldest son, and the oldest son is going to be the caretaker, the trustee of the funds, but he's not giving it to him entirely, even though it looks like that, but really the oldest son is the apotropos. B'nai Katan Mai. What about the B'nai Katan? What about if he gives it to the youngest son? The oldest son would make sense to be the apotropos, but the youngest son, why would he become the apotropos?
They don't include the broker, because if you're not able to expand so much, the wife would be considered, but the oldest son would be the sole inheritor.
So Hillel is asking a very good question. What happened to Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka, who says that if you allocate it to one of the sons over the other sons, that he gets it? Here we're saying that he doesn't get it. So how did they answer that? There's got to be a note on that, no? Isn't that like the obvious? You just switched everything that we learned.
Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, what we're learning here is that you say, I give everything to somebody. You can do it as giving it as inheritance, as a gift, or as a trustee, and not betrothus.
But he's not saying that. He's saying that it's an inheritance.
Yeah, but just like Baskin can take money and reallocate it, Baskin can say, well, we can assume this is what he really meant.
But what actually happens? What actually happens? I understand, but what actually happens? I have Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka saying that it goes to this guy, it goes to the oldest son. And I have Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel saying that it's, and I think Shmuel Paskin Difolik, Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka. And I have Shmuel saying that the oldest son is just a Petropos. Any comments? There's no comments on this? Not really explaining. Okay, let's go further. So we have a question. So it was stated, Rabbi Chani Loi bar Idi Amar Shmuel. He says, Afilu b'nai katna mutal barisa. Even if it's a young son that's laying in a bed, becomes a apotropos. Yeah, and it's not a gift. He's making him an apotropos. How's he going to do that when he grows up? Apparently, the father wants the other sons to respect him. Shita.
So does cotton here mean under bar mitzvah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shita b'nai va'acher. Okay, this is where it gets a little complicated. One of the ways of learning this is that if he gives it to his son, or that's a key word here that changes from the other pshatim, or he gives it to someone else, then the other person, acher, is b'matana. He doesn't care for the sons to respect some other guy. So it must be that he's giving it to him as a gift. But the son, that's probably because he wants the other sons to respect him, and that's a apotropos. Now there's a girsa here that says ishtei va'acher, and the Rashbam takes it out, and others take it out. Let's go to ishtei yarusa. His wife that's only betrothed, ishtei gerusha, and his wife that he divorced, his ex-wife. That's obviously matana. He does not care for his children to respect his ex-wife, and he doesn't care for his children to respect the wife that he's only betrothed to. So it must be a gift. I have a question. What if he gave it to a girl and there are sons there, or to a wife and and there's brothers, or a wife and their sons? What did he mean to do? Did he want to give it to her as a gift, or did he want the children to respect them? Ravina says, all of them is an apotropos, except for that case where it's a betrothed wife or a divorced wife, an ex-wife. Rav Avira Mishmei de Rav Amar Bekula Kani Labar Mi Ishaitz Lachem Vishaitzel Bnei Abal. It's the opposite. All of them he acquired except for the ones that it's the wife by the brothers, which he maybe wants them to respect her. And the wife, when there's the son, the husband has other sons, he wants them to respect the wife. Okay, let's leave it over here. We're up to Kuflam base. We're 1 page behind, I believe, right? Yep, 1 page. Sorry, we had today. Remind me your name. Moshe. Moshe. We have you moved here?
Yeah.
We have someone new here, Moshe, and he came to the Daf, and we're a page behind. I always feel bad for that.
Moshe who?
What's your last name?
Tarani.
Tarani.
Oh, well, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hatzlacha.
Hatzlacha, Rava. Okay.